Let me ask you something. Have you ever had your heart shattered so badly that you felt like you'd never breathe the same again? Have you ever sat alone replaying the moment someone you trusted the most walked away like you never mattered? Have you ever given your everything, your time, your love, your soul, only to be left feeling like you were never enough? If you know that pain, if you've ever felt that kind of deep, soul-crushing heartbreak, type 111 in the comments because I know what it feels like. I know what it's like to cry so hard your body aches. I know what it's like to wake up in the morning and wish you hadn't. I know what it's like to doubt your worth, to look in the mirror and not recognize the person staring back. But listen to me. This is not the end of your story. You think this pain is proof that you're broken. No, this pain is proof that you are alive. And if you are alive, that means you still have a fight left in you. It means there is something greater waiting for you on the other side of this suffering. But you have to make a choice. You have to do what is hard. You have to pick yourself up even when every part of you wants to stay down. You have to keep walking when your legs are shaking. You have to believe in yourself even when no one else does. Your worth is not defined by the people who walked away. It's a hard truth to accept, isn't it? That someone you loved, trusted, or gave your heart to could just leave. That after everything you poured into them, after all the late night talks, the sacrifices, the moments that felt like forever, one day they simply decided you weren't enough for them. And that feeling, that sinking, suffocating feeling, it makes you question everything. Was I not lovable enough? Was I not good enough? What did I do wrong? But hear me when I say this. Their leaving is not a reflection of your worth. It is a reflection of their journey, their choices, their limitations. People walk away for reasons you may never understand, reasons that have nothing to do with you, and yet we take their departure as a statement about our value. We let their absence make us feel empty, unworthy, like something in us must have been flawed. But what if I told you that their leaving was never about your inadequacy, but about their inability to see your greatness? See, people can only meet you at the level of their own understanding. If someone couldn't love you the way you needed to be loved, it doesn't mean you were undeserving. It means they were incapable. If someone chose to leave, it doesn't mean you weren't enough. It means they weren't meant to stay. And that's something you have to embrace, no matter how much it hurts. We live in a world where we crave validation. We want to be chosen, to be valued, to be seen. But the truth is, if your worth is dependent on someone else's ability to recognize it, then you will always be at the mercy of their approval. And that is no way to live. You have to understand that your value is inherent. It does not increase when someone stays, and it does not decrease when someone leaves. It is constant, unwavering, and completely independent of the opinions or actions of others. Think about this. Gold remains gold, whether someone recognizes its value or not. A diamond doesn't lose its brilliance just because someone walks past it without noticing. And you don't lose your worth just because someone failed to see it. The right people, the ones who truly see you, will never need convincing. They will never make you beg for their time, their love, or their presence. And if someone does, if someone treats you as an option, as something replaceable, then they were never meant for your future. Let me tell you a short story. There was a young man who spent years chasing after a woman who never truly valued him. He did everything, bought gifts, wrote letters, made sacrifices, just to prove he was worthy of her love. But no matter what he did, she always made him feel like he wasn't enough. One day she left and he was shattered. He spent months blaming himself, wondering what he could have done differently. Then years later, he met someone new, and this time he didn't have to prove his worth. She saw it instantly. She loved him as he was, without conditions, without hesitation. And that's when he realized he had spent all that time trying to convince the wrong person to see his value, when the right one would have never needed convincing at all. This is what I want you to understand. The people who walked away were never the source of your worth. They were simply passing through, part of the journey, not the destination. And if someone had the audacity to leave you, if someone made you feel unworthy, then you need to let them go, because your worth was never in their hands to define. It was always yours. So today, right now, I need you to make a decision. Stop mourning those who left and start celebrating yourself. Stop begging people to see your value and start standing in it. Stop giving your heart to those who cannot hold it, and trust that the right people will never let it go. Because you were never the problem, and their leaving, it was never a loss. It was just life making room for someone who truly deserves you. Healing is ugly, messy, and necessary. Embrace it. People often talk about healing like it's this beautiful, peaceful journey. Like you wake up one day, decide to move on, and suddenly everything falls into place. But that's a lie. Healing is not a straight path. It's not pretty. It's not easy. It's painful. It's exhausting. And sometimes it feels like it's breaking you all over again. But here's the truth. You cannot heal from what you refuse to face. Most people try to avoid their pain. They distract themselves with work, with people, with noise. Anything to avoid sitting with the weight of what they feel. They pretend they're fine, they smile when they're dying inside. They tell themselves that time will magically make everything okay. But time doesn't heal wounds. Acceptance does. And acceptance is brutal. It forces you to sit with the hurt, to acknowledge the betrayal, to admit that things didn't go the way you wanted. It forces you to feel everything you've been running from. But that's the only way through it. You cannot heal what you keep burying. You cannot move on from what you refuse to acknowledge. Healing requires you to break before you rebuild. It requires you to feel the depth of your pain so that you can release it. And I won't lie to you, it will get worse before it gets better. Some days you'll feel like you're drowning in your emotions. Some nights you'll cry yourself to sleep. Some moments you'll think you're back at square one. But that is part of the process. Healing is not a single moment. It's a series of moments, some good, some bad, some unbearable. And you must go through all of them. You must learn to sit with your pain without letting it consume you. You must learn to accept the apologies you never got. You must learn to forgive, not just others, but yourself, for holding on too long, for loving too hard, for trusting too much. There's no shortcut to healing, no magic words that will suddenly erase the hurt. But what you need to understand is that healing is worth it, because the alternative, it's carrying that pain with you for the rest of your life. It's letting it define you. It's allowing the past to rob you of your future. I once knew a woman who had been deeply hurt by someone she loved. She spent years pretending she was fine, telling herself that she didn't care anymore. But in reality, she carried that pain with her everywhere. She didn't trust people. She pushed away love. She built walls so high that even the right person couldn't get through. Then one day, she finally broke. She let herself feel everything she had been suppressing for so long. She cried, she screamed, she let it all out. And you know what happened? She finally started healing. Not because the pain disappeared overnight, but because she stopped running from it. That's what healing requires of you. To stop pretending, to stop suppressing, to stop avoiding. To sit with the pain, to acknowledge it, and then to release it. You will never fully move forward if you are still holding on to what broke you. So let it hurt, let it break you open, and then let it go. Because on the other side of this pain is freedom. On the other side of this darkness is light. And on the other side of this heartbreak is a version of you that is stronger, wiser, and more whole than you have ever been. Your past does not define your future unless you let it. So many people live as prisoners of their past. They carry their mistakes, their regrets, and their pain like a weight on their shoulders, convinced that they can never escape what has already happened. They believe that because they failed before, they will fail again. That because they were hurt before, they will always be hurt. That because they made bad choices, they are doomed to repeat them. But your past is only a story. It is not a life sentence. What happened to you may have shaped you, but it does not have to control you. Your failures, your heartbreaks, your struggles, they are chapters, not the whole book. But if you keep rereading the same painful pages, how will you ever write a new ending? Too many people let their past dictate their worth. They tell themselves, I can't be loved because I've been abandoned. I'll never succeed because I failed too many times. I'm not worthy of happiness because I've made too many mistakes. But these are just the lies your past tells you. Lies that keep you stuck. Lies that convince you that change isn't possible when, in reality, change is always within your reach. The truth is, every day is a new chance. A chance to break free. A chance to redefine yourself. a chance to stop letting what happened before determine what happens next. But the only way to move forward is to stop identifying with who you used to be. Stop seeing yourself through the lens of past mistakes, past pain, past failures. You are not that person anymore. And even if you were, you still have the power to change. Forgive yourself for what you did, for what you didn't do, for what you didn't know back then. You are learning, you are growing, and you deserve a future that is bigger than your past. But that future will never come if you keep looking back. There was once a young woman who struggled with addiction. She had made terrible choices, hurt the people who loved her, and lost everything. When she finally got clean, she couldn't shake the guilt. She told herself she would always be a failure, that she didn't deserve happiness after everything she had done. And because she believed that, she kept sabotaging herself, avoiding opportunities, pushing away people who wanted to help her, refusing to believe she could start over. Then one day she met someone who told her something that changed everything. They say you don't live in that past anymore. So why are you still punishing yourself for it? And that hit her hard. She realized she was keeping herself trapped, not because she couldn't move forward, but because she wouldn't let herself. And from that day on, she decided to stop letting her past control her. She rebuilt her life. She mended relationships. She forgave herself. And she proved to herself that her past did not have to define her future. And neither does yours, whatever happened before. It's over. You are here now, and you have a choice. You can keep living in the shadows of yesterday, or you can step into the light of tomorrow. You can keep letting your past control you, or you can take control of your future. The past is a lesson. Learn from it. Grow from it. But do not let it hold you back. Because the only thing standing between you and a new beginning is your belief that you deserve one. And you do. Self-worth is not given. It is claimed. Too many people go through life waiting for someone else to tell them they are enough. They seek validation from parents, partners, friends, or even strangers, hoping that if they hear the right words, they will finally believe in themselves. But self-worth does not come from the outside. It does not come from compliments, approval, or the love of others. It comes from within. And if you do not claim it for yourself, no one else can give it to you. The problem is that most people have been conditioned to believe that their worth is tied to something external. Their looks, their success, their relationships, their achievements. They believe that if they do more, achieve more, or become what others expect them to be, they will finally feel worthy. But that's a trap. Because the moment your worth depends on something outside of you, it can be taken away. And when it is, you are left feeling empty, lost, and unworthy all over again. The truth is, you were born worthy, worthy of love, worthy of happiness, worthy of respect. You did not need to prove anything as a child to deserve love, and you do not need to prove anything now. But somewhere along the way, life convinced you otherwise. Maybe you were told you weren't good enough. Maybe someone left you, and you believed it was because you weren't worthy of staying. Maybe you failed, and instead of seeing it as a lesson, you saw it as proof that you were not enough. But here's the thing. Your worth has never changed. Only your belief in it has. To reclaim your self-worth, you must stop looking outside of yourself for validation. You must stop basing your value on what you do, what you have, or who approves of you. You must decide, right here, right now, that you are enough, not because of what you've achieved, not because of what others think, but simply because you exist. That decision will change everything, because once you claim your worth, you stop tolerating less than you deserve. You stop begging for love. You stop allowing people to treat you like an option. You stop proving yourself to people who will never see your value. You stop living in fear of rejection, because rejection does not define you. And most importantly, you stop waiting for permission to be who you truly are. There was once a man who spent his whole life seeking validation from others. He worked himself to exhaustion, always chasing success because he thought it would make people respect him. He stayed in toxic relationships, afraid that if he walked away, he would be alone and unworthy of love. He put everyone else first, hoping that by making them happy, he would finally feel like he mattered. But no matter how much he did, it was never enough. Until one day he asked himself, when will I finally believe that I am enough? And the answer hit him. No one could give him what he was looking for. He had to give it to himself, so he did. He started setting boundaries. He started saying no. He stopped chasing approval and started living for himself. And for the first time in his life, he felt free. You are the only one who can decide your worth. And the moment you do, your entire world changes. You stop waiting. You stop seeking. You stop settling. You stop settling. You stand in your power. You demand more. You attract better. You become unstoppable. Because the moment you stop questioning your worth is the moment the world starts recognizing it too. Nothing changes until you do. People spend their whole lives waiting for things to get better. They wait for the right opportunity, the right timing, the right person to come along and make everything okay. They wait for luck, for a sign, for some magical shift that will turn their pain into purpose. But the truth is, nothing changes until you do. You can't keep thinking the same thoughts, making the same choices, and expecting different results. Life doesn't work that way. If you want something to be different, you have to be different. You have to change your mindset, your habits, your priorities. You have to stop making excuses for why you can't and start focusing on how you can. The problem is change is uncomfortable. It requires effort. It requires you to break patterns that have kept you stuck for years. It requires you to face your fears, challenge your doubts, and push through resistance. And most people don't want to do that. They would rather stay in a situation they hate than step into the unknown, because at least their pain is familiar. But here's the harsh truth. Nothing in your life will improve until you decide that you are willing to change. You want to heal? Then stop reopening wounds by going back to the things that hurt you. You want better relationships? Then stop tolerating people who don't respect you. You want success? Then stop making excuses for why you can't take action. Change starts the moment you stop blaming your circumstances and start taking responsibility for your choices. You are not a victim of life. You are the creator of it. And the second you decide that you are in control, everything shifts. There was a woman who dreamed of starting her own business. Every year she told herself she would do it. Every year she found an excuse. She didn't have enough money. She didn't have enough time. She was afraid of failing. And so year after year, nothing changed. Then one day she met someone who had built a successful business from nothing. She asked him, "How did you do it?" And he said, "I stopped waiting. I stopped making excuses. I stopped letting fear decide my future." That moment changed her. She realized she had been waiting for permission, waiting for everything to be perfect. But nothing was ever going to be perfect. So she made a choice. She started with what she had. She took the risk. She embraced the discomfort of growth. And within a year, her life looked completely different. Not because she was lucky, but because she changed. That's how transformation happens. Not overnight, not by luck, but by choice. So ask yourself, what are you waiting for? A sign, this is it. A push, this is it. A reason to believe in yourself, this is it. Your life will only change when you do. Your dreams will only happen when you decide to chase them. Your happiness will only come when you stop waiting for it and start creating it. Because at the end of the day, you are either changing or staying the same, and the choice is yours. Let that sink in. Read it again if you have to. You are stronger than you think. You have survived every single thing that was meant to destroy you, and you will survive this too. But survival is not enough. You were not put on this earth just to exist. You were made to rise. You were made to become something greater than your pain. I need you to hear me when I say this. Your life is not over. Your story is still being written in the next chapter. It's going to be the most powerful one yet. So stand up, wipe those tears, and do what is hard. Because on the other side of this pain is the person you were always meant to be. If this hit your soul, if you felt this deep inside, drop a 111 in the comments. Let the world know you're still here. Let the world know you're still fighting.